Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Doom of Dimensions, the latest core set to come out of the OCG, has finally hit store shelves, which means it's time to talk about the new cards found within. Now, over the past few core sets, I've actually had very little to talk about. Sure, there's at least one new theme to talk about each set, but the spots that would normally have anime imports have since been taken up by revisits of existing themes, ones that I've already done videos about. So you can imagine my surprise when we got a whole slurry of themes getting legacy support that I haven't had the opportunity to talk about until now. And the first stop is one I'm very excited to cover. While I had my doubts about it on release, this was a fantastic deck to mess around with when Master Duel came around, providing outrageous combos and sporting a very high skill ceiling. So get ready to put on your The Thinker cap and forget what you thought you knew about rituals, because it's time for Megaliths Explained. Real quick before we get started, one of the many themes to cover out of Doom of Dimensions is DDs, and I need your help to cover it. Ever since I started working on this channel full-time, my Patreon has had a goal where if I get 200 patrons, I would cover the theme, and now seems like as good a time as any to accomplish that goal. If you have $1 to spare each month, please consider supporting me over on Patreon or right here as a YouTube member. I'll be counting both, because it really does make a huge difference here. Not only do higher tiers get you early access to videos and parts of my Discord, it also means I'd have more money to hire editors, which would mean I'd have more time to do other outrageous things. It's no exaggeration that if just 1% of my audience gave a single dollar, I'd never have to worry about a video underperforming ever again, and I could invest in a lot more lore content. Turns out that stuff is pretty risky. Thank you all for your time, and now, let's get to the explaining. So, what's the deal with megaliths? Well, they're a series of Earth attribute rock-type ritual monsters whose claim to fame is that they have no non-ritual monsters to form their support base, and no ritual spells to speak of. Granted, we do have a spell that kind of skirts the line on that, but in general, our ritual monsters themselves have the effects we need to perform our summons. And for this strange design quirk, they've been granted many boons. They have removal, large attack buffs, targeting protection, and can even ritual summon right out of the deck, and at quick speed too. So despite being a bunch of stiff stone statues, they get around pretty quickly, though I'm sure all the Whovians in the audience know how to deal with that by now. And that's all the stuff that it does now. I'm not even mentioning the kind of stuff the new support enables, like non-targeting tribute-based removal to get rid of our opponent's monsters, which is just short of being a true kaijuing effect because it is still an effect. I would say that's enough of me gushing over the theme, but given our usual level order when talking about monsters, we're starting off with probably the best Megalith first, Megalith Full, a level 2 monster with 500 attack and 2000 defense. If this card is ritual summoned, you can target a ritual monster in your grave, and this card's level becomes the level of that target, then add that target to your hand. Also, during the main phase, as a quick effect, you can activate this effect. Ritual summon a Megalith ritual monster from your hand or deck by attributing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster. So already we're getting a handle on how unreal this deck can be. While this can only ritual summon on theme monsters, remember that I said that one of them is removal. So right out of the deck, you can bring out a board breaker at a moment's notice. And while the ritual summoning effect is specific, the graveyard recovery one is not, letting you grab any ritual that's in there. So we're starting to see that Megalith actually makes for a fantastic splash in a lot of ritual decks that don't necessarily have a large or refined engine to make them run. A classic is to tribute Cyber Angel Ben 10 for this card's summon, triggering Ben 10's search effect for a myriad of light fairy monsters that support ritual game plans. Then, have Full put Ben 10 back into your hand. Not only does this give it a huge level to be used as ritual fodder for later, a number that's going to be very important later on, you'll also get Ben 10 back, meaning at minimum you can use Full's effect again, tribute that Ben 10, and then get one of our amazing level 4 ritual monsters while triggering another search. And we're not even going to be able to get into just how good this card is until we reach the spell and trap card section, so throughout this video, just keep this little mantra in mind. This card is just full of surprises. Next up, we have our level 4 ritual monsters, and they have some pretty similar theming. Megalith Haggith has 1300 attack and 2600 defense, and if ritual summoned, you can add a Megalith spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Meanwhile, Megalith Ophiel has 1600 attack and 2500 defense, and if ritual summoned, adds a Megalith monster from your deck to your hand. There's also Megalith Oak, sporting 1000 attack and 2700 defense, and if ritual summoned, you can draw a card, then discard a card. All of these effects help to grease the wheels of the theme, but come with another fantastic one. During the main phase, each of them can activate an effect that allows them to ritual summon any monster from your hand, using monsters from your hand or field as material, including itself. Oak can even do it as a quick effect, which is pretty gnarly. It's also worth mentioning that while the ritual summoning effect is a hard once per turn, the on-ritual summon effect is not. So if we keep ritual summoning Hagiths, we'll keep getting Megalith spell or trap cards. The black sheep of this, though, is the newly released Megalith Full Oak, which has 2000 attack and 300 defense. If ritual summoned, you can add any Megalith card from your grave to your hand, and as a quick effect during the main phase, you can ritual summon a Megalith ritual monster specifically from your grave, except a copy of itself. But you can't activate both of these cards' effects on the same chain. So we have this interesting class of Megalith monsters that acts as our resource gatherers and enablers. It's not uncommon to ritual summon Ophiel to grab Hagith, at which point Ophiel can immediately ritual summon that Hagith to grab your spell and trap cards to get off to the races. Oak doesn't quite see much play, as Full outclasses it as a quick ritual summon, and a little bit of card draw and discard isn't going to impact much. It's Full Oak that has a lot to prove right now, since it only really works when your grave is chock full of cards to chew through. But having this on hand as a late game tool to play with from your grave seems like a blessing. And honestly, it's just really good to see that, after all this time, Full has pulled themselves together to be the best they can be. Not sure if Oak feels the same way after being overrun like this though, but what are you gonna do? Next up, we have a trio of level 8 Megaliths, and we'll be going into them a bit more in detail as they fulfill more interesting niches. However, they all share a distinct effect. You can discard them to ritual summon any Megalith ritual monster from your hand, tributing monsters whose levels equal or exceed what you want to ritual summon from your hand or field. This effectively makes them our ritual spell cards, though does mean we won't be able to add their impressive 8 levels to whatever ritual summon they start. First up is Megalith Bathor, who has 1500 attack and 2600 defense, and if this card is ritual summoned, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of ritual monsters with different names in your grave and destroy them. Here it is, the force of nature itself. This is a very popular summon off of Full, letting you hit your opponent where it matters the most, when it matters the most, and takes a few extra cards down with it. And once again, we have an effect that checks for ritual monsters, not Megalith ritual monsters, so the more off-theme rituals you can sink into the yard, the better. Heck, I'd even say it encourages you to play outside theme, as the requirement for different names means it can only go so far within theme. And then, because it doesn't really do anything while on the field, it makes for a fantastic piece of ritual fodder for your other summons. With how different the field is going to be after this devil is summoned, it's a perfect opportunity for one of those before and after pictures. Megalith Phaleg has 2500 attack and 1200 defense, and while on the field, monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense for each ritual monster in your grave. Now, that sounds innocuous enough in the abstract, so let's try to ground this in numbers. It's not unreasonable for a deck like this to have around 3 or 4 ritual monsters in the grave once you've pulled off one of your combos. So we're looking at around, let's say, 900 points of damage. Now, this already makes Phaleg 3400 attack, which is threatening to most monsters by sheer battle prowess alone. But then you remember, it's not just Phaleg getting the boost, and it's not just your rituals. Heck, it's not even just your Megaliths, it's all of your monsters. Now, we have some real stinkers on theme in terms of attack power, but now they become legit brawlers with this boost. But we also have to consider all of our support monsters. Maj is a go-to for any ritual deck, and now it can go toe-to-toe with Cyber Dragons. And Diviner isn't a monster the opposition can just sink a junk attack into to deal with. We're looking at the general of a mighty fighting force, and that's just from the bare minimum. Combo a couple more times, and you could have 6 or even 8 ritual monsters in your grave, giving you somewhere in the ballpark of 1800 to 2400 per monster. When you need to push for game, Phaleg is your go-to creature, turning any monster you have into a viable, certifiable, stone cold killer. Megalith Aratron has 2000 attack and 3000 defense, and when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control as a quick effect, you can place a ritual monster from your grave on the bottom of your deck, and if you do, negate that activation, and if you do, destroy it. So it's not the best protection of, once again, targeting effects are getting less and less common as power creep goes up, but for this particular subset of effects, you're all set. And you get to recycle a ritual monster to boot. It's also worth noting that, like with Oak and Full Oak, Aratron can use their ritual summoning effect at quick speed, so given the right hand, you can potentially do some Megalith nonsense during your opponent's first turn. Talk about surprising your opponent with Bathor, try doing it when you have no established board and see how they react then. Doesn't matter what card game you're playing, there's no escaping from the Tron. Next up, we have another new addition to the theme, and it's so big it has its own level category. Megalith Nortrafulra is a level 12 monster with 3700 attack and 2700 defense, and must be ritual summoned using only ritual monsters as material. You can reveal this card in your hand, and that turn, your opponent can't activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Megalith ritual monster effects. And when your opponent activates a card or effect as a quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then, if that effect targeted any number of cards on the field, you can tribute a monster your opponent controls. Wow, yeah, this is a trooper. Unlike Aratron, this is a true Omni Negate, and it doesn't even cost you anything. Heck, it gains additional removal in case it's one of them they are targeting situations. It's kinda wild. And it's actually easier to summon than you might think. Remember that play example when we talked about Full earlier where you recycled the Ben 10? Well, that means you have a level 6 ritual monster in your hand in the form of Ben 10, and a level 6 monster on the field in the form of Full. So just activate it, and by tributing itself and that Ben 10, you can get this monstrosity out of your hand or deck, and still trigger Ben 10 again. And if you hard draw it, not only is this a ton of levels, your opponent suddenly can't respond to any of your on-theme monster effects. Pair this alongside Phaleg and their unreasonable stat boost, and you'll be closing out games faster than you can realize that this card and Full Oak seem to be implying that Full is some kind of invasive variant that infected the other Megaliths with their crystal power. Fun. Alright, that's all the monsters. Now it's time for the spells and traps. Megalith Unformed is a quick play spell card that has you activating one of two effects. Either make all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack for each ritual monster on the field until the end of the turn, or ritual summon a Megalith ritual monster from your deck in defense position by tributing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal exactly twice its level. So this is what I mean when I say we technically don't have a ritual spell card, but we do have a spell card that performs a ritual summon. Sadly, this means we won't be able to benefit from any ritual spell searchers or synergies, so we have to rely on our on-theme tutors, but thankfully, we've got some pretty good ones. Now, in most cases, asking for double a ritual monster's level is beyond the pale. Even just talking about our level 4 monsters, you have to invest 8 levels worth to get it. But if you're only getting a level 2 monster, well now your standard level 4 monster will do just fine. In fact, the Ophiel Search Hagith, Ritual Summon Hagith, search out a Megalith Spell or Trap card line easily puts Unformed into your hand, and hey, Hagith has 4 levels, so just tribute it to get full out and there you go. It's an effect that's so integral to the theme's success that I don't think I've ever seen anyone activate Unformed for the attack reduction effect. Not that it can't ever be useful, but the upside of a full from deck is far too good to pass up in exchange for what is effectively Wall of Disruption. Seems like Unformed could use a little bit of reforming. Megalith Anastasis is a continuous spell card that lets you discard a card to add a level 4 or lower and a level 8 or higher Megalith monster from your deck to your hand. And once per turn, if you ritual summon any number of Megalith ritual monsters, you can activate one of these effects. You can only use each effect of Megalith Anastasis once per turn. Either draw 2 cards and discard a card, or tribute a monster your opponent controls. This is a card that I'm torn on. Turning one card into 2 is pretty appealing, especially since this lets you get a level 8 ritual, which are basically our ritual spells, and full, so you only need 1 monster to get this onto the field. And more ways to get full into play is a good thing. But the points of interaction here are huge. As a continuous spell, removal interrupts this, and it's just begging to get Ash Blossomed. That being said though, the additional effects are quite nice. Non-targeting tribute removal when you need a stubborn threat gone, and card advantage when you don't. The funny thing is that they want you to have 2 of these on the field, even though the search effect is a hard once per turn. Because as it turns out, the second effect is a soft once per turn, but points out that you can only use each effect once per turn as well. So if you have 2 Anastasises on board, you can activate both of those effects, but like, that's just asking for trouble. I hear that if you put 2 Anastasises on the field together, the opponent's Feather Duster just magnetizes to their hand. It's weird. Megalith Portal is a field spell card that makes it so the first time each ritual summoned monster would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not. And if a Megalith monster is special summoned, except during the damage step, you can target a ritual monster in your grave and add it to your hand. This card is absurdly good and makes for a fantastic addition to your playlines. Getting back a free ritual monster every turn is great since we either tribute them for our summons or pitch them for their in-hand effects, so this helps keep our card economy stocked up. This goes double if we ritual summon during our opponent's turn because we still get the trigger. Though even that is a bit misleading, it only checks if a ritual monster is special summoned, not if it's ritual summoned, so more mundane ways of fielding them work as well. Not only does this help recycle our on-theme monsters, this also gets back things like Ben 10 for even more searching. And because that part is so functional, the first effect is a nice extra bonus. Battle Destruction is pretty situational, and even then it only does it once per turn, but you'll be glad to have it when it comes up. However, beware what happens when you run this during a mirror match, because Portal, despite being made in the 2020s, takes a page out of old field spell playbooks because the battle protection is reciprocal. And when it comes to checking for if a Megalith monster is special summoned, it doesn't check to which side of the field or who summoned it. So in the mirror match, you could just be giving your opponent free cards by summoning your Megaliths. I want to be mad, but it's honestly too funny to care. Megalith Emergence is a continuous trap card that lets you target a Megalith monster in your grave and special summon it in defense position, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field, even if this card leaves the field. This is one of the reasons it's important to note that Portal triggers on special summons, because as a trap card, this works during both players' turns. So not only are you getting a monster back each time, it's another potential Portal trigger to get you more stuff. But even outside of that, it's a fantastic way to get on your opponent's nerves. They may spend their resources trying to get rid of Full so it doesn't keep pulling monsters out of your deck, or Phaleg to keep you off your buffs, or Aeritron to make way for their targeting effects, only for you to flip Emergence and get them all back. The ritual going back to the deck when it leaves the field is a bit rough, but is probably necessary to keep it from being oppressively strong during simplified game states. And besides, that just means more targets for Full to grab. This is an overwhelmingly powerful card, especially if you find yourself stuck in the grind game, and is sure to help you emerge victorious. Megalith Promotion is a continuous trap card that can target a level 4 or lower monster you control, and its level becomes double its original level until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. I hate ending on a stinker like this, but the card isn't really passing the vibe check. Like, I know what it's going for. Doubling our levels means they can serve as better ritual fodder, and because it can be used on any monster, it's not like it's situational where you have to have summoned the Megalith ritual monsters first. You can turn Manju into 8 levels worth of material, but the deck is already in such a good place in regards to that I can't ever recommend using this. It's either taking up a spot in your opening hand or your draw for turn, which isn't great for a card that isn't advancing your game state, and there are so many other better search targets that I'd never find myself picking this over another one. If this was stapled onto another card that had more utility, this would make for a nifty secondary effect that added some utility. Kind of like how Portal's effect to protect ritual monsters from battle would have sucked by itself. But as a standalone card, I think it's due for a demotion. Alright, that's all the Megalith cards, but what do we do with them? Well, the theme has a bunch of tools for winning in either protracted conflicts or closing out games quickly if the situation demands, but it suffers from the usual ritual hangup. Just about everything in the deck requires 2-card combos, and in a game that thrives off of unreasonably powerful 1-card starters, this puts us behind the 8 ball almost immediately. To solve this, we'll want to add in as many consistency pieces as possible to help ensure we stay on track, and maybe throw in a couple of curveballs to hit our opponent in a way they aren't expecting. So what can we play to help them out? To help with the consistency issue, I think it's hard to find a better theme to pair with Megalith than Incantations. While we can make great use of the extra deck, those monsters aren't imperative for our combo lines, so we can take a brief break from them to get free materials and ritual spells. And that's right, the ritual spell part is important. Incantations come with their very own Incantation Inception, which works on any ritual monster, provided you only tribute incantation monsters, which you'll have plenty of. It even trades out incantations for ones with with more appropriate effects while recycling itself. It's such a bonkers card. And I'd be remiss if I skipped over Chalice Slime, which can trade out any card to special summon any incantation. So when it comes to smoothing over your hands, there's no better teammates than them. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop there. It's time for more generic ritual support. Preparation of Rites is pretty slick here, as it pulls any of our level 2 or 4 Megaliths out of our deck, as well as Chalice Slime, and recycles any spare ritual spells that might be in our graveyard. Pre-preparation of Rites, sadly, is going to be very situational. It doesn't work for any of our on-theme cards, so you'll only want to include it if you're bringing in something from off-theme that it's compatible with. But Readying of Rites is unreal. It's a new TCG exclusive coming out of Duelist's Advance, which tutors a Fiend Ritual monster from your deck to your hand while making you a level 1 token that prevents extra deck summoning while you control it. But what Fiend Ritual would be worth playing this for? Why, Miracle Raven, of course! This Pendulum Monster's spell effect is its own ritual summon, and the token that we make is perfect material for it. And when deployed, it can be used for the whole material for any ritual monster that requires monsters to summon, and even gets you a free ritual monster when you tribute it for a ritual summon. This can be useful for getting into play any variety of random ritual monsters, but assures you'll have everything you need to bring out Nortra Fulra. It's even specifically a ritual monster, which is the only thing that Big Boss eats. We also can't overlook Manju of the 10,000 Hands, the second best way to fix ritual hands, and Diviner of the Herald, the best way to fix ritual hands. You send Herald of the Arclight with Diviner to get a ritual monster or ritual spell search, and now, if you tribute it, you can get a bunch of other low-level fairy monsters. You can do some absolutely unreal stuff, like summon Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, to unlock that whole deck, complete with its own Omni-Negate, or you can summon Poissonnier des Nouvelles to grab one of their own cards, and if you tribute it, it goes into the Pendulum Scale. Pair that with Miracle Raven, and you've got a scale from 0 to 8, meaning you can pendulum summon just about all of your non-ritual support monsters, including the mighty Choju of the Trillion Hands. Why pick between getting a ritual spell or monster when you can get both? We also have a couple of nifty link monsters we can make use of. Dynamondo has been around for a while, recycling our rituals while providing removal and a way to pop rituals back out of our graveyard at a moment's notice. You may remember it for such heinous combos as Magician of Black Chaos Max summoning during your opponent's turn to shut off their ability to activate monster effects. Not that I would suggest you do the same thing here. However, a new link just showed up in Duelist's Advance in the form of Ashland U1000. Its material is a bit more choosy than Dyna, but it gives us all kinds of benefits. The piercing helps us push through all that damage we get from Phaleg, it can grab you off-theme ritual monsters, and even turns your ritual summons into bouncing removal. As for a silly tech pick, well, let's say it's also a little evil. See, we're already incentivized to use Ben 10 as many times as possible to fill our hands with fairy monsters, but even when we fill the grave with 3 Ben 10, their usefulness still hasn't ended. It just means we've got to bring out the next Cyber Angel, Natasha. Easily deployable with any of our level 4 Megalith ritual summoning effects, as well as a few other cheeky maneuvers, their on-field effect isn't really that important. Rather, it's what it can do while in the graveyard, banishing another Cyber Angel to summon itself from the graveyard while stealing an opponent's monster. In effect, that is not once per turn. This means you can take their monster, link it and Natasha away, then repeat the process a couple more times, all while gaining a huge chunk of life points each time because Natasha also randomly lets you win in time. This leaves the door open to playing all kinds of link finishers. So feel free to add in Boral Sword Dragon or Access Code Talker, whichever flavor of generic win condition floats your boat. Normally, the silly tech picks section is less about being effective and more about having a good time, but today, I think a good time involves violence. And that's all I've got to say about Megaliths. I'm excited to see if this deck has what it takes to compete now that it's got a bundle of new toys to work with. The recent release of Duelist's Advance and Monster Mayhem seems to be the advent of a new wave of legacy decks getting a second wind, and while it might have something to do with people fawning over new cards, I'd like to think that the sheer power of these cards are no joke, and Megalith is a great example, and I look forward to a powerful duelist who can realize these statues' stature. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are megaliths making mighty moves, or are they dumber than a bag of rocks? And which one's your favorite? Personally, I'm a sucker for a good dragon, so the new Nortra Fulra is my jam. Let me know your favorite down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, click on my videos in the sidebar to make sure I show up on your homepage, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout while helping out the channel. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Upstairs Media, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Meme King, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pat Boos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sonic 21 Blast, the Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Ally Vatnia, Animasta, Anthrak, a Random Pup, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Christopher Fuss, again, Chris B, Cool Trainer Dark, Dr. Entity RIP, EB Channel, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Inblink, Julian Marquez, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru 02, Manga Pages, Natiel Lee Alexander, Nitromo, Not Al Gore, Obsidian, Pombo, Rhyme Kairos, Shizuka Nijimura, Simic Toadstool, Sir Knight JCB, Sphilia, Stephen Huntsman, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Queen of Time, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara and Zaldrucka, as well as all the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you want to learn more about the deck that's the backbone for many ritual themes, check out this video covering Cyber Angels. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.